Hello, this is a continuation of my long essay on sociological theories regarding the emergence and development of new religious movements, this one dealing with crises of survival. So just to remind you, we've already discussed in detail various psychological theories related to the emergence of new religious and political movements. And we've just begun to talk about crisis theories, so this is the second of those videos to do with crisis. So, crises of survival. At the most basic level, it's possible to identify what might be termed a crisis of survival, involving severe threats to human physiological needs, for example, starvation, homelessness. Such crises are typically severely destabilizing of normal social patterns and may indeed lead to a general demoralization, especially if the crisis is prolonged. Thus, Colin Turnbull's observation that for some famine victims, as for some concentration camp inmates, the imperatives of physical survival led to the abandonment of all those appendages seen as useless: family, cooperative sociability, religion, love, and hope, which was perceived as militating against personal survival. More generally, the experience of chronic physiological deprivation, where people toil from sunrise to sunset for a bare living, may produce conditions of extreme apathy, in which individuals nurse no grievances and dream no dreams, in Hoffer's words. For when people are really hungry, they're too busy seeking food to do much else, or else they die. By contrast, the threat of an impending crisis of survival or recovery from such a crisis might well give rise to new religious and social movements. The impending impact of disaster or recovery from such a disaster being sufficient to upset people's taken for granted assumptions about the world, and thus cause them to question their existing patterns of behavior. That such crises may in fact cause people to make structural rather than conventional comparisons in Ari's terms does seem highly probable, given the close correlation which often emerges between the incidences of famine or other major disasters and the rising social unrest which may fuel millenarian or secular revolutionary movements. Not that such comparisons need to be very accurate. The identification and persecution of scapegoats has also been a common response to crises of survival, or alternatively, the threat of such crises has induced people to engage in expiatory rituals in the hope, presumably, of staving off the impending disaster, or in some instances, of securing salvation at what was perceived as a time of apocalyptic doom. The threat, rather than the actuality, may be conceptualized in Maslow's terms as constituting frustration at the second level of basic needs, those concerned with the maintenance of the individual's sense of security, stability, and protection. Typical responses to such threats entail a closer clinging to authority. In relatively stable societies, this would be the established authority of law and order, but in the absence of such stability, new systems of authority may be accepted, notably ones involving dependence upon the strong or charismatic leader. Note the common tendency to see strong leaders as charismatic. Thus, Colburn's analysis of personal feudal dependence as a mode of revival of a society whose polity had gone into extreme disintegration, or the acceptance of authoritarian national saviours in modern conditions of social instability, or of reformist messiahs in certain traditional societies threatened with total societal dislocation. Although charismatic leaders seem particularly liable to appear in contexts of extreme politico-economic disorder, their central concerns at some times are more often with the restoration of order and stability than any new revolutionary message. Indeed, in general, conditions of extreme disorder do not appear to be conducive to the emergence of radically new religious movements. Thus, for example, the evidence of the absence of movements during the latter part of the Western Dark Ages, the revival of religious dissent accompanying the restoration of political and social stability, both in time and place. Again, it may well be that the lack of political order favors a particularly ritualistic style of religiosity, and that focuses attention away from ideas of religious change, or more generally, that political instability inhibits change in the basic socioeconomic structures of society, and thus also the need for any new religious movements to cater for changing religious demands. Thank you for listening, and particular thanks to my patrons for their kind support and encouragement, without which I wouldn't be able to make these videos. You're very welcome to support my channel if you wish. Please do like, comment and share on videos, it really does help. Subscribe if you want to be notified of future videos. I'll give my Patreon link below if you want to provide practical support. Next week we'll talk about crises of social potency. My apologies again, I still, all my books and papers are in storage, so I don't have the bibliography for this essay, so I'll put up the details of various references when I can do that. Anyway, have a good day.